Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start with the story of Karen, who of course was smarter than everyone. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Karen? Do the math. Last night, the missus and I got a bit of a hankering for a pizza, so I gave our local pizzeria a call and ordered an 18-inch meat feast for collection. A short while later, I strolled down to the shop to collect it. While I was waiting for it to be boxed up, a woman comes bustling in and wraps her knuckles imperiously on the counter, demanding service. The only person serving was currently out back dealing with my order. The last dutifully comes out, tells me that my pizza will be out shortly, and turns to the woman to take her order. I want 2 12-inch meatball specials and be quick about it. I have 2 hungry kids at home. Ooh, look, a Karen in the wild. Maintaining an appropriate social distance, I said, "Excuse me, but if both pizzas are for your family, you're better off getting one 18-inch pizza. It's cheaper and you get more pizza for your money." Note, a 12-inch is $8.95, an 18-inch is $12.50. She looked me up and down. "Don't be stupid. 2 12-inch pizzas are more than one 18-inch one. It's bloody obvious. Didn't you do maths at school?" I did, which is why I know one 18-inch pizza is bigger than 2 12-inch ones by about 10%. She snorted derisively, turned to the last serving and said, "I'll be back in 20 minutes, and my pizzas had better be ready." With that, she swept out in a cloud of cheap perfume. I looked over to the last serving, who could barely contain her laughter. We get this all the time. Doesn't matter what you say, people never believe that the 18-inch is a better deal than 2 12-inch ones. They always think we're trying to rip them off. And this, my children, is why you pay attention in maths class. The pizza was delicious. And our second story. Insult my work ethic? Huh, guess you're right. In my restaurant, there's one section that's the last one to close down. Since that makes that the busiest, the person working in that section is the head and has extra responsibilities throughout the day. They come in about 45 minutes early to prep for the evening service and are responsible for checking everyone's closing duties and dismissing them when they're done. This usually means that the person working in the shared bus stand does 90% of the setup, so the head can do their own setup work, and because the head has to do all of the breakdowns alone, about an hour after everyone else has gone home. It's a courtesy thing as well as a necessity for smooth service. The incident. I was working as head and lost a good chunk of time of my setup due to a manager changing their mind about a certain table arrangement, causing me to waste a lot of time lugging a heavy AF table and 8 chairs across the restaurant and back again. This includes up a flight of stairs, and one can only carry 2 chairs at a time. I get back to my section and scramble to get the rest of my opening duties taken care of before doors open when I realize that my stand mate, hereafter known as Butt, had done what we do in any other shared stand and set up about half of the stand and was idly polishing plates while thumbing through something on his phone. Me. "But I need you to finish setting up the stand. I'm still missing XYZ and ABC from my side, and we still need EFG and expiration labels." But "You need to pull your own weight in the stand. I had to set up my section, so I don't have time to do yours. It's not my fault you're too slow to do your job." I was livid. I had been there already for over an hour doing my setup duties, and had actually been ahead of schedule before I had to trek across the place 12 times. Additionally, if I didn't finish my setup work, it would affect every other staff member and significantly cut into our service level and therefore our tips. I didn't have time to argue with him, so I told him, "I'm doing my job, you do yours. If there's anything missing from the stand when we're open, it's on your head. Manager knows who's responsible for stand setup," and left. I managed to finish my duties in time and have to dive right into dinner service. Since my section is open latest, we get seated first so we can get more tables in thanks to turns. And I don't have a chance to clean up after him. We're still missing a lot from the stand, and his section isn't even set up right. I know manager noticed and chewed butt out for it at one point during service. The petty revenge. Like I said, head is responsible for checking each person's closing duties and giving them the all clear to head out. Anyone who leaves without checking with the head is written up following an incident that culminated in a hit to our health inspection grade because of undone work going uncaught. This means that no matter how long you've been done with your cleaning, if the head is in the middle of something service-related, you get a wait. I'm sure you see where all this is going, but here we go anyway. But, "Hey, I'm done. Can you check my closing work?" Me. "Yeah, in a minute." proceeds to do every possible menial bit of labor I can for my guests. 10 minutes later, but, hey, I'm still waiting to be checked out. Me, I know, sorry, I'm kind of swamped right now. I legitimately did have multiple large parties that were taking up time. I'll get to you in a minute. 10 minutes later, but, are you going to check me out or what? Me, I'm sorry, I have to take care of my section. I don't have time to do yours. I guess I'm just too slow. I only wasted about another 5 minutes of his time, enough for him to stew before I checked his work and gave him the okay, and he rushed out. I know I'm in no danger from management. I have 2 witnesses that know how busy I was during that time and will vouch that he was being impatient. Besides, when it's busy enough that you're waiting 10 minutes to be checked out, the usual thing to do is offer to help or take over in the section so the head can take a break long enough to check your side work and send you home. He could have offered to help to get out of there sooner, so he has no one to blame but himself. Our company keeps making this big deal about teamwork and being there for each other, and that there's no such thing as not my problem, so we'll see if his attitude merits involvement from the managers. And our next story. Neighbors attack old man because he has a camera in his window. I was in high school at the time this happened. I'm 22 now, so this was a couple years ago. My grandfather had picked me up as my mother was working late that night, so I went to stay at his house till my mother finished and she could pick me up. It was the usual day at first. I would play the Mega Drive game collection on Xbox 360 and have my dinner the usual time, but while I was playing my game, it went all wrong. There was a knocking at the door, which my grandparents curiously answered. It was the next-door neighbors, 2 grown men, which had caused issues with my grandfather in the past. They were yelling about a camera being pointed at their back garden. The camera they were talking about was a small indoor TV antenna so you could watch basic TV channels in that room, the room I was in at the time. The men were trying to push their way upstairs past my grandparents, which in turn caused them to nearly hurt my grandfather in the process. He was military back when he was younger, so he was able to push them back a little. Meanwhile, I was freaking out, scared that if they saw me, they'd hurt me too. I was making plans in my head to run into another bedroom and lock the door so they wouldn't find me. Luckily for this story, the police were called. The men tried to say my grandfather had punched them while inquiring about the camera, but a fault in their story being they admitted to jumping a small brick wall that split their garden and my grandparents' driveway. This caused the police to suspect them for going over with bad intentions. I talked to the police, who came into the room to check to make sure it wasn't a camera and to make sure I was okay. Charges were filed, and soon the evil neighbor was forced to rent a new apartment, much farther from my family's home. My grandfather had a camera installed after that. And our last story. Bogger tire downtime. I used to work underground in a nickel mine as a bogger driver. Boggers are very low haulage trucks that carry the rock ore from the end of the tunnels to the mine shaft, where the rocks are carried up to the surface in these large buckets called hoppers. Often our loads would spill onto the tunnel floor, and if the miners had blown up rock that contained rock bolts, metal rods glued into the rock backs, ceilings to prevent cave-ins, it paid to avoid driving over them because they were often quite twisted after being exploded and could penetrate the bogger tires. Sometimes on return trips, where I knew there were spilled rock bolts, I would quickly stop, get out, and chuck the rock bolts into the back of my bogger to avoid any mishaps. One night shift, I was picking up a 12-foot-long twisted rock bolt from my tunnel when my shift boss came driving around the corner. We used to call them white hats, as that was the color of their hard hats. He got out and angrily asked me what I was doing. After explaining, White Hat shouted at me and told me it was critical that I maximize my time at the wheel during my shift so I can move more nickel ore. He then said some bullcrap about health and safety and how he could have crashed into me. I said something about my blogger lights being the only light in the dark tunnel and that he should be able to see me, at which point he threatened me with a warning. To finish off, White Hat instructed me to remain at the bogger from pickup to drop off, no matter what. So I went back to my shift and the week went by event-free. The next week, I was on afternoon shift, and as I was getting changed in the dry room, the day shift bogger driver stopped by for a chat. They told me how that same White Hat had given them the same instruction. We all agreed the White Hat was a tosser and was just trying to increase the ore production to make himself look good for his bosses. I had a 3-day break and returned to finish off my afternoon shift, and when I walked across the yard from the change rooms toward the mine shaft where I'd catch the cage down to the level I worked, I noticed a bogger tire sitting in front of the shaft was hard to miss. They're about as tall as a doorway. As I approached, I could see there was an angrily handwritten sign sitting on top of it. Standing in front of it, I could see a rock bolt had pierced the thick rubber tread and gone all the way through the sidewall, where it stuck out like an angry broken arm. I learned later the rock bolt had ripped out a number of hydraulic pipe feeds and other bits. The sign read, "Cost of bogger tire, $35,000. Cost of bogger repair, $115,000. Cost of 3-day bogger downtime, $950,000. Total cost, $1,100,000. Drive safe, stop, and remove all dangerous spills." The following weekend, I was having a beer and got speaking to the fellow bogger driver who was responsible for the damage to the tire. After a few beers, we're having a smoke, and he leans in close to me and tells me he had driven over that rock bolt 3 times until it finally went through. He knew it went through immediately, but just continued driving, ignoring the screams of metal on metal until the hydraulic fluid drained dry and his bogger seized to a halt. The white hat was fired the next week, and we returned to picking up rock bolts. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.